May Allah bless and keep you safe, keep you safe. May Allah bless and keep you safe.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام عليك يا رسول الله الصلاة والسلام عليك يا حبيب الله الصلاة والسلام عليك يا نبي الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا نور الله. My dear respected viewers of Madani Channel, we once again welcome you in Silsila Secrets of Health. In this program, we talk about how to stay healthy and healthy lifestyle and well-being. At the same time, we also try to discuss that the effects of fasting on our health. Alhamdulillah, we have covered quite a few topics in earlier programs, episodes, and today we've got another beautiful topic, which is brain and fasting. Dear Islamic brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, before we proceed towards this topic, let's make few good intentions, because it is a saying of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Niyatul mu'mini khayrun min amalihi. Intention of a believer is better than his actions. And remember, if you do not make any good intention before performing any permissible task or good deed, then you are not rewarded for that particular task. Another important point is the more intentions one makes, the higher the reward he attains. So I make this intention, inshaAllah Azza wa Jal, that we'll be presenting this program for the pleasure of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, inshaAllah Azza wa Jal. And the foremost intention to do this program is that we share awareness and we bring awareness, we share information to you so that you look after your health, and alhamdulillah you also try to understand what benefits one gets when he fasts, inshaAllah Azza wa Jal. And you can make this intention, you will be with us from start till end, and you listen with utmost concentration, remember what you learn and act upon, and not only this, you will pass this knowledge on to others too, inshaAllah Azza wa Jal. Let's go towards our guest, honorable guest, who is Dr. Khurram Attari, who is a consultant and practicing in one of the UK's university hospitals. We welcome him again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing?
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
MashaAllah. Jazakallahu khairan. Thank you so much for coming once again to our show. Doctor, it's a very interesting and important topic, because brain is known to be head of the body, because that is what controls our whole parts and body parts and the organs. At the same time, it sits in head, isn't it? So you can metaphorically and technically understand the importance of brain. Today, first of all, I would like you to explain the main structure of our brain, how beautifully Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala has created this organ, and how important it is for our body, and completely, inshallah, we'll start from there.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I think brain is really one of those fascinating structures which, even despite all the best efforts and the incredible modalities of investigation which we have, including functional MRI scans, we still are unable to unravel the mysteries of brain. So there is really a limit to how much we actually know about the brain. And especially in this era of artificial intelligence, where there is so much discussion about machine learning and automated learning, there is something to be said about what a beautiful creation of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is, of a brain, that no matter whatever we try and do, we somehow are unable to replace the human brain. So if we talk about the structure, as I said, it is a very complex organ. And so as you said, so brain, it sits in our skull, and there are several parts of the brain, but broadly speaking, we have the two top bits of our brain. So these are divided into the right and the left hemispheres. and the whole part is called cerebral cortex. So this is involved with the higher mental functions. So in a sense, these two hemispheres which make the cerebral cortex, they control all higher mental functions and possess the ultimate control for everything we do, the talking, walking, use of muscles, everything is controlled through the cerebral cortex. And then that cerebral cortex will then go, as we go towards the back of the brain, it will move into the second part, which is the midbrain, and then it moves to brain stem, which again has two main parts. There is pons and then medulla oblongata, and then that will then continue into the spinal cord. So that is the overall major structure.
And every part has got its own function.
Exactly. So that is the beauty, is that one is amazed at how different areas of the brain, which are so closely related and rather co-located, can do such different and a range of functions which brain can do. It is incredible. Even the crisscross pattern we see, so the right side controls the left side of the body and vice versa. And then the whole system of communication brain has with the peripheral body parts. Exactly. So something happens to a little toe and our brain recognizes. And then its ability to process. And then the great name of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, the hearing, this ability to see. All these extraordinary abilities which Allah Ta'ala has given, all of that is being processed through brain as well. So yeah, so I think there is no way to do justice to the functions of brain. There is a lot to discuss. But broadly speaking, I guess for the audience, this would be, and then inshallah we will cover a few more aspects of that later on.
MashaAllah. Very respected viewers of Madani Channel. Despite the fact we are in 21st century, despite the fact modern science has developed, evolved and done so much of research and has gone to the next level of understanding, but yet, as the professional doctor has explained, the fact that yet we have not been able to discover the major, all the functions of brain itself, right? The complete functions, I mean, the main ones, maybe we are aware of that, but in detail we have yet not uncovered what actually brain is and subhanallah how it works. But when you think about brain, the second thing is knowledge. Knowledge and brain, they are very much related to each other. Alhamdulillah, our Islam has given us this understanding to know, to have an understanding of know-how and knowledge, to seek knowledge. There is so much of emphasis, alhamdulillah, Islam has put, and lots of Quran has talked about it, and Quran says that how can a person of knowledge and a person who has no knowledge, an ignorant person, they cannot be equal. How can they be equal? So absolutely right, this understanding is very important. The person who has the knowledge, when he seeks knowledge of Deen and Islam, when he ponders into world's wonders, and when he looks around the creativity of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, this nature, this mechanism, how everything is functioning in a very accuracy, subhanallah. And again, in our body parts, what we have been discussing in our series of the program, and today we're talking itself about the brain. So the key point I would like as a question to tell you, and for all the viewers of Madani Channel, that if only we can think that, subhanallah, the way each and everything is functioning to its accurate level, there is a creator, that is Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. But unfortunately, we have done so much of research. We know how many fish are there in the water. We know how many maybe galaxies are there, or how many stars are there, how many planets are there. We may know about the numbers, and so much information is available, right? But unfortunately, this human being has not yet understood the ma'rifah of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Many are there, they're still denying the fact of the existence of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. I'm really surprised. If a person who has a little bit of knowledge, if he ponders, if he looks into it, then he would understand that this everything is not just functioning. There is a creator, and that is Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. So this brain, this knowledge is very much connected. So if you want to have the recognition of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, if you want to know the ma'rifah of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, then you need to seek knowledge. So when you will have knowledge that comes through brain. So brain is a very important organ to have the recognition of our creator. Alhamdulillah, we are Muslims. Those they are people of knowledge, they have the ma'rifah of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. If we have lack of knowledge, we should go to the people of knowledge, to those they have recognized Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, those they have ma'rifah of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. We should go and sit with them and learn. And again, Dr. Sahab, I think you should elaborate on this, that how much Islam has emphasized to think, to ponder, right? And emphasis on knowledge. And then inshallah we'll come back to brain.
Absolutely. So I think, if we look at how Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, there's an open invitation, with several places in the Holy Quran, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is inviting. Look at my creation. These are all symbols of my existence. They are telling you that there is a supreme being who has created all of that. So Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala's invitation is open. And I guess that's where sometimes I feel that there is obviously the eyes, which are vision is being processed through our minds. But I think what we touched upon earlier is that is perhaps basaratun. So that is that eyesight. But what we also need is basiratun, which is really that inner understanding. So I think that's what I guess we must pray to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, exactly, the real insight which is required. But certainly in terms of examples, I am constantly amazed when I see a whole range of patients, and I would feel, I remember a few weeks ago when I was on call, and an elderly man, he comes in, and the only symptom he has was that whenever he looks down, he gets headache.
Allah.
So just at that moment, I scratched my head and I did various tests for him. I even got a CT scan of his brain. I thought, it's something to do with, when he's looking, but where is the problem? And thinking, and in the end, when we finally found out, and it took me a while to get to that diagnosis, is that there are 12 different nerves called cranial nerves, which control the head and neck function. So the movements of our tongue, the movement of the muscles inside the tongue, the movement of the eye muscles, the movement of facial muscles. So we're giving all these facial expressions. They're all being controlled through these cranial nerves. So of those 12, there is one nerve which controls the movement of eye, to where it pulls the eye when we are trying to look in the middle and downwards. That function belongs to the fourth nerve, the trochlear nerve. And he had trochlear nerve palsy. And I thought to myself that, look, his symptom, which seemed so superficial, so innocent,
rare.
Exactly, overall rare, it was a complication in his case of his diabetes. But so I guess, I thought it is incredible really that one nerve, which has coming from a distant part of the brain at one area, it gets a momentary loss of blood supply. And then you lose that control, that each time you try to look down, he gets headache. And this is just one example. There are so many examples of that. If we look, so we have talked about the structure of the brain. The beauty of the physical function of the brain lies in these special cells, which are nerve cells. And the term which we use for those is neurons. So I'm sure our audience will be surprised to hear that there are 100 billion neurons in a human brain.
100 billion
100
neurons.
billion neurons in a human brain.
If you queue up.
Exactly. So we can't even queue up. So, but if we try and queue 2 million neurons, just 2 million neurons. So this is the number of neurons which are lost every minute following a stroke. So if one were to lose just 2 million, so 1.9 to 2 million neurons per minute following a stroke, if we were to cue them and line them together, that will be equivalent to 12 kilometers of length.
Allah.
So that's just 2 million. And we're talking about 100 billion neurons. And the beauty of these neurons are that during our growth phase, they're constantly increasing in numbers. And then when we achieve maturity, interestingly, the number of neurons, they start to decline. But the ones which are there, they are mature and they're able to absorb a lot more. So though the number decreases, the quantity decreases, but the quality improves. And that's why, so there is well-known fact that, the experience comes with age. Here is that experience. So, so this is the beauty about those neurons is that these are the basic nerve cells which are transmitting all these electrical impulses. And this is really what we are processing. And signals. So it is really, trying to access, for example, if you look at the RAM of the computer, so the random access memory. And so what we do is that we press a key and the computer goes berserk to try and find that information and bring it. So the higher the RAM, the easier it will be to exactly. So exactly like that, these neurons, so we think to ourselves, oh, what am I going to wear today? And for that question to be answered, how many of those neuronal connections are required to make a circuit for the brain to process that information and give us an instant answer? So as we are talking, we are instantly interpreting that information, processing that information. All of that is happening in nano to microseconds.
We're deciding.
And we are making these decisions. So, and we haven't even, so this is just one of the higher executive functions of brain. So everything we look at in terms of the brain function, it's incredible. And the other thing which is incredible is that these neurons, they connect to each other, and that junction between the two neurons is called synapse. So this is where there was an electrical impulse which followed the brain, and if there is a test called EEG, electroencephalogram, which can measure the electrical activity of the brain. So this is sometimes you perhaps use in patients with epilepsy to either diagnose their condition or to monitor their condition. So what we're measuring is that electrical activity in the brain. It gives us a graph on the paper chart to see that whether it corresponds to the normal wave patterns of the brain. But when it needs to communicate with the next nerve, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has given a beautiful chemical called a neurotransmitter. So the electrical energy converts into chemical energy, transmits the message to the next neuron, then it converts back to electrical energy. So, so we're talking about windmills here and trying to convert wind energy, energy into electrical energy.
One form to another form.
One form to another form. And that's happening constantly in our brains. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has created this amazing network and the meshwork of these neurons which are all around us.
I think that's one of the reasons that subhanAllah, we are unable to understand the function of brain itself. How can we understand the creator who has created all this? So for that, it should be in total submission to Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, and Rasulullah Sallallahu Ta'ala Alaihi Wa Alihi Wasallam has guided us the religion of Islam. We should believe in it with wholeheartedly and with yaqeen and with faith, and inshaAllah Azza wa Jal, because we have not utilized our brain. We are very restricted with very restricted knowledge. So we are not able to understand our own body. How does it function? How can we really understand Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala's Zat itself, subhanallah.
So, I mean, that brings me to the point, we recently had the night of ascension of our beloved Prophet Sallallahu Ta'ala Alaihi Wasallam.
Asra wal Mi'raj.
Asra wal Mi'raj. And that is again a beautiful example. So, if we look at, the usual example I give is that if we look at in our eyes, a human eye can only differentiate in dark we have on the retina, which is the processing center of the eye, which will help communicate with the occipital lobe in the brain, which is the back lobe. On that retina, we have 120 million rods. So that structure is called rods. It is only 32 micrometers, so it's about 30 micrometer thick. And that whole length of retina is only 32 millimeters. So in that, we have 120 million rods which help process the information at night in dark, and we have nearly 6 million cones which help with the color vision, which is particularly during the day. And despite all of this, we are only able to appreciate light which falls between 400 and about 700 nanometer wavelength. If you look at laser, for example, where the wavelength goes to about 1,000 nanometers, our brain is unable to process that. And that laser can actually affect badly the eyesight. And that's why we say the laser shouldn't be pointed in someone's eyes. Because it is light, but it is a light which is above the threshold which human eye is able to interpret. And it is said that with these rods, the human eye can differentiate about 100 million different shades of color.
Subhanallah, subhanallah.
That is human eye. So imagine when our beloved Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam proclaimed on the morning and said, I have been with these physical eyes to see the unseen, to see Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. You must believe in that. So those who again tried to process that information through their meager brains, so they questioned Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala, how is it possible for a human to go all the way and to be able to witness? We can't witness even 1,000 nanometers. We are talking about pure nur. How is that possible? But when it comes to that faith you mentioned, ask Sayyidina Siddiq Akbar radiyallahu ta'ala.
He testified straight away.
He testified straight away. So I think that's where the difference. So we can have all this information, but we still need to remember that as there is a limit to what we know about brain, similarly the faith is something which is beyond human insight, and certainly it cannot understand Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And that's why this is where we have to have that eye of faith.
Sure.
And that is the only way to.
MashaAllah. So Dr. Saab, we were talking about the physical side of the brain. We have discussed about the structure of the brain. Let's move one step ahead. What sort of illnesses are related with brain, and how does the fasting bit fits in and helps the well-being of our brain?
So I think one of the examples of a condition which I guess we all must know of is, and that's again a great way to understand about when the function goes wrong, what can happen. And that will fit in quite nicely with fasting what it can do. So the condition which I would like to get our audience attention is stroke.
Yeah, very common.
So exactly.
Nowadays, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, very common, and this is something which needs to be instantly recognizable.
Yes.
Because the treatment is time dependent.
Sure.
So the quicker the treatment is delivered, the likelihood of achieving a better response is much higher. So there has been huge national campaigns. Exactly. So the usual one which we always advertise is FAST questionnaire. So it's a questionnaire, you can call it, or it's basically a process of elimination. So the 4 letters, they refer to the commonest symptoms of stroke. So FAST, so F stands for face. So this is the facial drooping, which would tend to happen on one side. So some people may notice dribbling, the loss of, so that comes in the S. That's right. So in the face, it's basically usually the angle drooping and the drop of the cheek muscles. Then A is for arm. So it's the arm weakness. So particularly of one side, so that's what we call focal weakness. S stands for speech, so it's the loss of speech. And then T is for time. So that is how quickly it has happened. So if it is something, so stroke happens within seconds to minutes. So if we notice any of these symptoms, and again, it's basically stroke is a brain attack. So like the myocardial infarction is a heart attack. This is basically a brain attack. So major blood vessel in the brain that's been blocked, causing loss of blood supply to part of the brain, which controls an organ, an arm or a leg, for example, or the speech. And that's why they are affected, and that's how the stroke is recognized. So if we ever see that sort of situation, we have to ring the emergency service straight away, because that person needs to get to hospital ideally within 1 hour to get the clot busting therapy.
Right.
So that is quite important. But in that context of stroke, where basically we say time is brain. So with every passing moment, as we just heard, nearly 1.9 to 2 million neurons are being lost every minute. So they are dying as a result of that stroke. So the longer the delay in diagnosis, the longer the risk of the permanent damage to the brain. But this is, I guess, something which I feel is a great way for humanity to learn the lesson of humility. So, exactly. So when we think, we have got these huge plans, we have got our whole lives ahead of us, we have decided, this is where I would retire, and this is the island where I would buy my next beach home, and this is, so we've got all these plans lined up. And one of the first jobs I did as a trainee doctor was on a stroke ward. And that image still is in my brain, where this person had a stroke, and this is what we call, so the phenomenon is called sensory inattention. So he had a stroke on the right side of the brain, and as a result he lost the left arm control. So on the ward round, we asked him a question, and we said, do you know what happened to you? He was able to talk. So he said, I had a stroke. And then the next question we said, okay, well, which side was affected? And he was unable to answer that question. So we probed him further, and we said, so where is your right arm? And he raised his right arm. Where is your left arm? And the answer to this, and I still vividly remember that he said it is somewhere there. So he
can't even feel it.
Exactly. So his brain lost the ability to process the mere fact that his arm is still attached to him. Exactly. So for him, that arm being there or not there was equal. So everything is there. On the outside, the arm looks perfectly healthy. The leg looks perfectly healthy. But if you ask him, for that person, he doesn't know nothing about that side, just because that the brain lost that capability to process that information.
So why to be arrogant? Exactly. Yeah, why do we think that we are everything and we need to be arrogant, and we use this tongue too much? Right? We backbite, we slander, we tale-tell, we lie, we humiliate others, we snatch people's belongings through our hands, and we grab people's belongings through these hands, we beat people through these hands, and through this tongue we do so much of destruction. And Allah forbid, if stroke happens, what happens? This arm is not moved at all. You can't move your hand, through which you were sinning, through which you were destroying others' rights, violating others' rights. Through the tongue you were disturbing others, humiliating others, and you were, dear Islamic brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, astaghfirullah, may it be backbiting, slandering, lying. Through this tongue, if we are sinning, we should fear Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. If Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala is displeased, it may be a possibility that a punishment is also in a way that we may lose the functioning of these body parts. And astaghfirullah, those patients, they are not able to speak. They lose their speech power, they lose their body movement. and we should not be arrogant. We should always be thankful to Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Then again, if it happens to somebody, it's not necessarily that it could be the curse of his sins. It could be a test and trial from Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala too. It could happen to the pious people too. I'm not saying it, but again, I'm just giving you a message for understanding that we should always fear Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. If Allah has given us this blessing of speech power, if Allah has given us a body parts functioning all well, we are able with abled body, we can perform each and every act what disabled can't do. But alhamdulillah, we should be thankful to Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala in every condition He keeps us. So Dr. MashaAllah, we are talking about the functioning of the brain and the beauty and the way it has been structures, such an amazing creation of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Now, if we go a bit further, how does fasting helps to reduce the illnesses, especially in terms of stroke?
So the key thing here to remember is that there are some parts in our body which are able to regenerate. So a typical example of that would be skin. So we all know, even if I just rub my skin, I have just shed perhaps thousands of cells just by doing that. And we know that those cells will be replaced. So we get a cut or a bruise, and then that skin heals, new skin comes over it, because skin has regenerative potential. To some extent, we know that this ability is in the liver, so the liver is able to regenerate to an extent. However, if any damage happens to the heart, that muscle is never able to regenerate. Same is the case with nerves. So nerves, which are basically collection of these neurons, and they are really the transmitters from the central nervous system, which is our brain and the spinal cord, to the peripheral nervous system, which is all these nerves supplying each and every part of our body. So every cell in the body, as it needs blood supply, we also need for everything, we also need a nerve supply for it to be able to function, for it to be able to sense, for it to be able to, for example, if you're moving our hands, to be making a fist or moving our fingers, all of that requires nerve function. However, nerve injury, if Allah Ta'ala forbid, if that happens for any reason, and of course, once in stroke, what's happening is that it is a neuronal injury. So if similarly, if we get a nerve injury, it is not able to regenerate. So that is the key concern we have with nerve injuries. The beauty about fasting is that there have been a lot of research which has shown that one of the effects of fasting is neurogenesis. So actually, fasting promotes development of new neurons. And it doesn't just do that, it also can, it's been shown to have synaptogenesis. So actually those synapses which I mentioned, so the junction between the two neurons, where the neurotransmitters are move, and they are the reason for communication between the two neurons. So that is called a synaptic response. So that chemical response which has happened due to that neurotransmitter, those synapses generate as well as a result of fasting. So as we were discussing, that stroke is one extreme where we're losing all these things. Every minute we're losing millions of them. Exactly, but fasting is something now, I'm not aware of whether any studies has been particularly done in stroke patients, but we do know that there has been several studies, which have been certainly animal studies, and there is some human study evidence as well, that it will promote neurogenesis and synaptogenesis. So how is all of that possible? The fasting, we would think this is of the alimentary canal, of our gut. How could it have such beneficial effects so far away? So technically speaking, this is pretty far for the brain and the nerve endings and the neurons. But these are all the effects of the general effects of well-being which go with fasting. So it is not just the chemical balance which is being optimized, but actually here is the brain function which is being optimized as well. So, so people sometimes think, oh, actually, by fasting, I feel slow and I feel fatigued, and towards the end of the day, I don't have much energy. But actually, this is a great way for our neurons to repair, for our synaptic responses to improve, because Allah Ta'ala is giving an opportunity for the nervous system to do that through the means of fasting.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, beautifully. The Islamic brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, this topic is quite lengthy and we are unable to cover. There's much left, inshallah. So we'll come back with another episode on brain and fasting. Until next time, keep watching Madani Channel and keep reciting Salat upon Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
May Allah bless and keep you safe. Keep you safe. May Allah bless and keep you safe.